Joining me is Sean Spicer, the first White House spokesman of President Donald Trump. Sean Spicer, great to see you again. Look, we've already seen the left demonise Donald Trump, for instance, so badly that it's absolutely no wonder there were 2 assassination attempts on him during the recent campaign. And now the glorifying of this murder of a health executive. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's interesting. Well, obviously, this particular case in New York is unfolding as we speak. We'll find out a lot more about the individual. But I'm particularly intrigued that for all the, I mean, I mentioned this last week to you, that for all the concern that we have from the left about guns in this country, they just let off Hunter Biden off on a gun charge without a peep. The lack of concern of President Trump. You know, the hypocrisy on the left is something that I've always taken note of, and I think it's exemplified in what they say and what they don't and when they do. About
Donald Trump, he was at the reopening. Sean, I was just absolutely stunned by the pictures I saw because it was such a contrast to me. I'm interested in your opinion. He was at the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. It got burned, obviously, 5 years ago. On the weekend. And it was astonishing to me, the welcome that he got there. And by the way, that he also gave to the Ukrainian president. That's interesting. But lots of warmth. There were smiles, handshakes, hands on his back, including from Prince William, smiles even from Joe Biden's wife. This is a very different reception from the first time that he was president. What say you?
It is. And I loved watching this because if you closed your eyes and fell asleep and woke up and saw some of these images, you would think he was president right now. The reception that President Macron rolled out for him is one that a sitting president would get. You forget, not just because of how Donald Trump is being received, but the lack of Joe Biden's being on the stage, that he's still president. And it's something that was noted here in the States. This is an event, by the way, Andrew, that Joe Biden normally would have killed to go for, right? He says he's a Catholic. This is a stage of world leaders. This is sort of like right in Joe Biden's wheelhouse. And instead, it was the first lady who went. You have to wonder why. And I think it's partly because I just wonder if he's still up to the job, frankly. But you're right. The reception that Donald Trump got was very different. And I think it's because the world leaders last time took it as a fluke. We don't know where this guy came from. Now they know that the American people have spoken loud and clear. So if I were a world leader, I'd be doing a lot of sucking up. And I get why they're doing it. I think they're very, very concerned about how he's going to treat them going forward.
I think there's also, going back to the first part of your answer there, Sean, sort of relief that there's someone in charge that they can deal with, that America has got a firm hand on the tiller coming along. But it's also, you know, the first time he was there, you would remember this very well. For instance, the famous photograph of the then Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, leaning over him like he was a recalcitrant student, giving a lecture, all these other leaders joining her. There seems to be now a respect, which he could well have done within the first term, but seems to me to promise some real action in this second term.
I would clear your calendar for the afternoon of January 20th. Donald Trump is coming back to office with a vengeance. He's had 4 years to understand the people, the process, and the policies that are going to drive the next 4 years. I think that these world leaders initially kind of thought that Donald Trump was a fluke in 2016, and we're going to lecture him about how the world works. And after Donald Trump, frankly, learned the system, if you will, I think they're very concerned about him coming back in office because he knows exactly the buttons to push, when to push them, and how to push them. And he's not going to have a bunch of people to put the brakes on. He is surrounding himself with people who understand that they're coming back into this administration to implement his policies. And I think, like it frightens some of the folks in the left in this country, I think for some of these world leaders, especially NATO countries that have been getting away with not paying their obligations under the Article 5 treaties that they've obliged themselves to, they're worried that Donald Trump is going to enact stiff penalties off the bat in various ways, whether it's trade or other means. And I think that they know that they want to curry favor as quick as possible. He's not kidding this time around. He knows he's got 4 years, and he's going to play with every second that he's got.
But there's one thing, though. Syria, right? You've had the fall of the dictator there who's fled to Russia, the opening of his prisons, stories of the torture of prisoners. You see the explosion of joy that this butcher who used chemical gas against his own people, you see the explosion of joy that is gone. I reckon this creates a problem for Tulsi Gabbard, who is Donald Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence. She has in the past suggested that, well, Syria is not an enemy of America, suggested she even wasn't sure that the dictator Bashar al-Assad was a war criminal.
As I have said before, if there is evidence that he has committed war crimes, he should be prosecuted as such.
But you're not sure now?
Everything that I have said requires that we take action based on evidence.
Given these statements of hers, does that make her a problem for Donald Trump? Her nomination, will it go through the Senate, given that she seems to have been so wrong on Syria?
I think she actually probably caught a break, Andrew. By Assad being, fleeing the country, there's a lot less concern about him being there and how we would deal with him, et cetera. So she may have actually caught a break on the timing of that. She's going to have to answer for her comments and her policies when she meets with these senators. I think that's something they're going to press her on. But I've said this before, and I just want to make sure people understand. She's a military officer here in the United States, and by virtue of that, maintains at minimum secret and from what I understand, a top secret clearance. So any conversations or concerns that she had by others should have been at least rectified by our security clearance process. So if there was grave concern about interactions that she's had or positions that she harbors, those usually get flushed out in that process. So I would just argue that there's a little bit of, pre-clearance that's been done by the very virtue of her serving in the military at the level that she has.
I would hope so, although her softness on Putin too has been a concern, so we shall see how this all plays out. Sean, it's been fantastic to have you on the show this year. This is our last time together. I really appreciate the insights you've brought, and what a ride it's been with this election of Donald Trump. So thank you so much for all you've done for us, for the viewers, and good luck to you with have a happy Christmas and New Year.
I will. Thank you. You too as well. It's always a pleasure to be with you and the folks at Sky.